Hey everyone, and welcome to your Daily Detroit. It is Tuesday, October 24th, 2023. Sharing what to know and where to go in Southeast Michigan. We have got a heck of an episode for you today. I am Jer Stays, and across the table from me is
Cheyenne Usarini.
Producer Cheyenne. Always good to talk to you.
It's great to talk to you too, Jer.
It usually means we're going to be talking about a serious story with a little bit of domain expertise and, food, which I think is the case today.
I think you're right, Jer. I think you're right.
This one I haven't really dived into, although a number of listeners have reached out about it. And it's kind of personal. There is a large rezoning plan for the kind of downtown area of Grosse Pointe Park. We've talked about it before. Maybe you remember when we talked about Brine?
Yes.
Over there at Kercheval in Maryland. A number of other businesses in that area. We both know it well. Our team knows it well. Many of our listeners know it well because I have like a stack of like 15 people who want us to talk about it. But I need to do some due diligence and kind of look at the timing because tonight there is actually a hearing around this proposed rezoning. And let's get into the details, Cheyenne. And full disclosure here, one of our contributors lives in this possible rezoned area.
Yep.
It's one of the reasons why they're not on, because we want to bring some objectivity to this one because it's very clear how they feel, and I understand that completely. But we need to talk about it. So the idea is that basically it's the Cotton family. They're billionaires. They're kind of like the big money people. Like Grosse Pointe's got money, and then the Cottons have money.
Right.
And they got their money from the sale of Meridian, and they have been remaking a lot of things in the Grosse Pointe. Some of them, honestly, like I've been to a number of them and enjoyed them. We talked about Brian La Rouge Boulangerie, Flyleaf, I hear is really good up on the hill. Like there is a number of investments that the Cotton family is doing that really help build the urban fabric. Part of their request is to change the zoning for a number of these single family and duplex houses between Weyburn and, say, Beaconsfield and go a few houses on either side of Kercheval. This zoning would allow them to buy, or anyone to buy, those homes, if they're willing sellers, and convert it to parking and to parking lots. This is an interesting thing to me because I think changes are afoot in Grosse Pointe.
Yes.
You see a new apartment building going up in the village. There's a new apartment building planned for right on the border there in Detroit, like Alter and Kercheval. But this one raises a lot of eyebrows because you're talking about demolishing homes. And if anything we've learned in this region, people get a little bit nervous about that, and for justified reason. You look at District Detroit. That very public example of homes. Like I remember when those parking lots for District Detroit were neighborhoods. And there is a lot of fear out there that this will be the same sort of thing. And there has been a lot of questions raised through multiple media reports that there hasn't been enough transparency about what the plans are for these spaces. Of course, eminent domain doesn't exist like it did during the Poletown plant era. So people have to want to sell. But I also know through my own personal experience that the city can sometimes be rather aggressive with taking property. We have a dear mutual friend who lived next to the library and fought tooth and nail, and it took years, but was actually able to keep their triplex because the library wanted to demolish what turns out to be a pretty rare triplex home for parking.
And it's a very old triplex home.
Well, isn't that one of the things that's the character of this neighborhood?
Yes.
There are not, and for those who don't know and think, and I get it, a lot of people don't have much sympathy for the Grosse Pointes, but this neighborhood is one of the few neighborhoods left in Metro Detroit that's actually walkable, and it reflects a lot of what the east side of Detroit that is now mostly demolished, and we both have family from this side of town. We have family who live nearby here.
I mean, Jer and I both grew up in this neighborhood. So we are very, very familiar with these 4 streets along Kercheval.
It reminds me a lot, and I didn't know this until recently, but the story of like German Village in Columbus, where they had to fight tooth and nail to keep their uniqueness, their brick streets and things. And now it's one of the most desirable neighborhoods in that entire area. Change is inevitable. And as I said, like I'm not somebody who's like anti-change at every turn. But some of the reports that came out when I will cite the tower from Grosse Pointe South, they're talking about 10 acres of parking lots.
That is a lot of parking lots for a rather small footprint.
We're talking 4 short blocks. We're not talking even 4 long blocks.
Yeah, these are 4 short blocks. These are the streets that we used to walk up to and walk down, and we would go to Cups, and we would go to the print shop that is now Bricks on the corner of Lake Point and Kercheval. We would go to Buscemi's.
And to be clear, I don't think you're yearning for the print shop days.
No. I do have fond memories of the print shop days because I used to go with my dad.
Mm-hmm.
But the point is that what makes this neighborhood, which is known as the Cabbage Patch, so beloved is the fact that, one, it is a walkable neighborhood, like you already said. Two, there is the density. This is a mix of single-family homes, double-family homes, quads, and it brings the density that we have lost through this region that we just talked about a couple weeks ago. And to demolish homes that are...
I mean, some of them are older.
Some of them are older. To demolish them for just a parking lot seems quite nearsighted.
So I'm reading, and it's not the city of Detroit, but you can see this across the region in Dearborn, other places. I'm reading this book, Curtis Chin, about everything he learned in a Chinese restaurant. And it was very clear that many times, like in this region, promised plans don't come to fruition.
What? No way.
And there is a lot of echoes. At least the feeling that I'm getting talking to people is that there's a lot of worry that without a transparent plan, it'd be one thing if you're going to say, oh, we're going to put an apartment building, like, have a discussion about what's going to go there. But to transition zone it to parking or whatever, that feels like what could be a land grab. And I think for all the coverage that I see, and I've been looking at a lot of it, that's the main concern is that, you've got this integrity of this neighborhood that is walkable. And let's be honest, the Cabbage Patch doesn't make as much money as the rest of the Grosse Pointes.
They don't.
It's more middle-class housing. It's frankly middle-class affordable. The thing that is in our inbox, everybody's talking about as a problem, that neighborhood has. And taking away housing will only increase and force, like it hurts things overall. What you need to do is increase supply and maybe look at some ways to design an urban way. Look, I think in a perfect world, to an extent, you would see more of these developments happening in the city of Detroit, but it's so damn hard to get anything done that you're seeing this kind of move to Grosse Pointe. There's also a ton of reasons. School districts. Weirdly, the taxes in Grosse Pointe are less than the city of Detroit. I know, it's a thing. And you get way more services. So not to be like a huge fan person of it, but just looking at it from a family's perspective, everything else, you have something unique. And change is inevitable, but I really think it's important. As I said, there's a hearing tonight about this. I think it's important to think about other solutions that are maybe more urbanist minded.
Why can't we have a parking structure?
I mean, some people might like it. Some people, I mean, I don't want to speak for them.
I know some people would hate park. I know there are some NIMBY problems where they probably won't want a parking structure. But the village has a parking structure.
And everybody seems to use it. That's the other thing.
Yeah, that parking structure is always busy. You park in there, you get a validation if you need to go to Trader Joe's or any of the places, you can get a validation and parking is paid for.
So there's been this long debate on the other side of Mac. There's been discussion that a Chick-fil-A is going in and a large amount of traffic around it. There's actually a Montessori school next to it.
Yep.
This is a back and forth. I attended this hearing with the city of Detroit. I bring it up because it neighbors it.
Yes.
And one of the reasons why this is happening in Detroit is because the points don't generally allow drive-thrus unless they're grandfathered in because of the walkability of the neighborhood to favor local businesses. So I feel like if you're going to ban those drive-thrus, having a completely parking-centered situation, it feels inconsistent to me.
Yes. And the thing about this is, like we've already said, these are 4 short blocks that are easily walkable. There are other parking lots in this neighborhood. They're not very big, but they are there.
You could also do something. I know some people freak out about it because it's Detroit and that's what they do. But there's that empty lot that the Cotton's own. Why not? They've talked about a grocery store. Why not put a grocery store on the bottom floor? Like I just visited a City Target in Chicago. You put a grocery store on the bottom floor. You do a couple layers of parking and you do, maybe a layer of residential or something like that. There's some ways where you actually wouldn't disturb many homes over there.
Or here's another idea. You put parking underneath and then you put the building on top like they do at the Wegmans that I went to in Washington, D.C. There are other options.
I do think, though, that there is going to be this ongoing wrestling with change. Because when you're talking about any kind of structure, that's a different place than a lot of people knew. It goes from more of the streetcar suburb it changes the vibe a little bit. But I also think inevitably when you have somebody throwing this much money around, change is going to happen. It's about how you manage that change and not people feel like they're going to be pressured into selling their homes.
Yeah.
And that's the big fear. And that transparency, I think, is important. What if there was an actual plan that people feel like they were a part of to do some of this stuff? Or, when you put that out there, I've seen this before.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important to manage the change a lot better than other places did. And honestly, if a place like the Grosse Pointes that have the resources and the knowledge can't manage it, it makes me fear about anywhere else being able to do it.
Okay. One more point I want to bring up. We've talked about the Village. Also in this Tower article.
We'll put a link in the show notes.
We will.
Great. Yes, it is a high school publication, but they have a long and good history.
Yes. In the Village, they have only 5 acres of parking. And they have double the amount of businesses in the Village. So in the Grosse Pointe Park area, they want 10 acres of parking.
So the Village there has Kroger, has a bunch of other larger retailers.
Yeah, it's a larger space. And there's smaller businesses, there's doctor's offices on the outskirts right behind those businesses, and they have half of the amount of parking that they are wanting to zone for in the park.
Listeners will know I'm not anti-progress. I just, looking from the outside of this one, it feels like it could be managed a whole lot better and maybe be a model to do things and think about things better than making the same mistakes over and over again that we have in this region. Because I think, when you have something that's unique, if you take away the thing that makes it special, people don't come anymore.
No, they don't.
And again, this isn't, me. I'm not somebody's evil, I'm not that person. It's pretty clear to me from the outside here that I think a better vision could be presented, if that makes sense.
I agree.
All right, let's get into some other stories. Food news. Cheyenne, you spied with your little eye.
I did. I was driving down Woodward last week, and there was a Subway just south of 9 Mile that had closed down during the pandemic. And then last week when I was driving down Woodward, I noticed that they were painting it, and I was like, that's some progress. What's going on? So I dug a little, and somebody on the Fabulous Ferndale forum that I'm on also was wondering, what's happening with the old Subway? And then somebody shared a link. And guess what Ferndale is getting? A Caribou.
Listeners will know. We talked that they're coming back. They're coming back. And they're going to come to Ferndale.
And they're coming to Ferndale.
Honestly, I can't think of a better place to put them.
Yeah. So I'm very excited to have Caribou coming back. The article I read is actually from June. I don't know how we missed this news, Jer. But it was back in June that they announced that they were actually coming to Ferndale. And the article says that they're going to focus mainly on the drive-through because this Subway had a drive-through. And there might be just a takeout counter. So it's not going to be like our beloved sit down Village.
So where on Woodward is this going to be?
So it's on Woodward northbound, but it's south of 9 Mile.
Okay, so between 8 and 9.
Yes.
Okay, that one. Okay. I had a different thing in my head, but no, that makes sense to keep that going. That Subway was inconsistent, to say the least. And also our engineer took a fall and busted his tailbone during the winter on that one.
I remember, yes.
Oh, man, he was walking around with a donut for weeks.
He was. But I'm very excited that we're getting a Caribou, and I can't wait for it to open.
All right. Also up the Woodward way, we need to talk about In-Season Cafe. It is officially done. Since 1981. In-Season Cafe has been doing vegetarian food in Royal Oak. They found that, and this is according to a Crane Detroit article that we will link to, the owners are a bit older now. They found it difficult to restart the business. There's kind of a half-finished remodel in there. It's a really cool little corner space off of downtown Royal Oak, and I think it's definitely got some potential. But I think a couple of things. One, I've eaten there a few times. I, enjoyed it, especially with my vegetarian friends. I also wonder, it's tough to see these vegetarian and vegan restaurants. It seems to be a really hard road for them in parts of Metro Detroit.
Yeah, I've never actually been there. I've driven by a lot, and I know it was very popular. It's sad to see a place close that's been around for as long as I've been alive.
I wonder, too, and I would love to hear from listeners, 313-789-3211 or dailydetroit@gmail.com. If you're a vegetarian or a vegan, do you go out and eat a lot? I wonder what the difference is, because I see this buzz online. This isn't the case with In Season because it's been around a long time, but it did have a hard time finding its footing through the pandemic and everything else. Do you go out a lot? Because this is something where I see so many people get really excited. You see so much social heat and then no traction. Like if there's anything, a story about vegetarians or vegans always gets a lot of clickety-clicks. But then inevitably, I see that place suffer later on.
Right.
There are, of course, exceptions. I want to hear from those exceptions, too, about what's made it go to them or what parts of town. But this seems like a really tough road to hoe around here.
Yeah. I know Detroit Vegan Soul closed their one location in West Village.
That's now Yum Village, I think, or one of the Yum Village branches. They had been going catering, more catering focused. They still are to an extent, but they're one place in Grandmont Rosedale, I want to say?
Yes.
They've got their hours are 12 to 6.
Ooh.
Tuesday through Saturday, which go support them.
Yes.
But those are difficult hours.
Those are.
You know what I mean? Like that's a lunch hour, like really you're getting dinner on the way home or something like that. I've noticed a lot of limited hours places nowadays. And that's a whole nother conversation. But I am curious, if you're vegetarian or vegan, where are you going? What parts of the region are you going to? My gut tells me it's going to be higher income places.
Probably. Yeah. So it's a bummer that In Season had to close. And I hope something cool goes in there.
For sure. For sure. There's a lot of stuff happening in downtown Royal Oak. All snark aside from some folks. I mean, downtown Royal Oak in many ways is becoming like that strong hub of the region, or a strong hub of the region. In part, I mean, you've got a lot of investment, you've got money, you've got location. Woodward, 75, 696, incomparable for a region that's moving west and out.
Yeah. I mean, and also I want to point out, it is a walkable downtown that has what? Parking structures.
People, oh my God, people complain about those though. But
you know
I
what?
always go to them. You know why? Because they're easy.
And you know what?
You're not going to get a ticket.
Don't get me started on the metered parking in Royal Oak.
That is a mess.
It is horrible. Although,
you're there all the time.
I am. They have like extended the amount of time that you can like sit in a parking lot before you pay. But for a while there, it was like you had to get out of your car immediately and you had to go and pay and put money in the meter, because otherwise you would get a ticket sent to your house. It was ridiculous. Anyway,
that's not good.
I digress. So yeah.
Well, that's the whole thing. Like, sure, people can be like, oh, implementation matters. It really matters. And I've heard from a lot of people that it was not a great situation, but I avoided it all because I just kept going to the garages because everyone told me it's a mess. I still had stuff to do.
But you know what? You get 2 free hours in the parking structure.
Yeah, that's true. It's a good incentive. And if we can just a little bit of change, I'm not saying anyone's got to give up their cars or anything, but just a little bit of change could make so many things work easier, you know? Like I get it. If you have disability situations or if you have other issues, I get it. But if you're able-bodied, I think it's good to just, you know, do what you can, like, and save those spaces for the people who need them. They're a little bit closer.
Yes.
And finally, there is an unexpected situation from the closing of Awrey's. Was not planned by the company, because Awrey's their Livonia factory.
Yes.
Turns out they were the contract manufacturers for Sanders Bumpy Cake. So we're in another Sanders limited situation here until they find another vendor. How are we here again? Because people remember, we just solved the fudge situation.
We did. We just
solved the topping situation.
We just solved the hot fudge problem.
And now we're in the Bumpy Cake problem.
And now we're in a Bumpy Cake problem.
Okay. Is Bumpy Cake still iconic? Do people younger than us? I feel like we're on the borderline of knowing about Bumpy Cake.
I don't know how younger people feel about Bumpy Cake, but I know how I feel about Bumpy Cake. And that is...
sell it in a muffin size. That's how I feel.
Yeah, I could get behind that. I do know that sometimes I've gotten Bumpy Cake and it hasn't been the freshest. And that's when there's a problem.
Well, they're saying that the supply might run out by Christmas. So here's the deal. I think the Bumpy Cake is a very sweet endeavor, and I do enjoy it. I was at a party, and somebody had made like an imitation style Bumpy Cake, but they were like perfect sized.
Yeah.
Because when you get the big cake, I feel like it's too much, unless you're throwing a party.
Yeah.
I really feel like if I could do individual Bumpy Cakes, and you're going to sell them for a premium, of course. I understand that. But I feel like that's the way forward to go. Maybe offer that. I'm also curious, and you're right, I don't know. Younger people, anybody under, say, 40. Because I'm a veteran young guy. dailydetroit@gmail.com, 313-789-3211. Do you love Bumpy Cake? Is it part of your world? Is this something that, like, is nostalgia for you? Or what are you into now? I'm very curious, because there's some of these brands, they're so iconic for Detroit, but I don't see the same kind of energy for them like I did.
Yeah, I'm really wondering how the younger people feel about it. Because I know how let's older people feel about it.
And I could ask some people, but like, I just thought of this right now.
I mean, I know my 8-year-old enjoys Bumpy Cake, but also he loves...
You introduced him to it, though, right?
I did. But my child pretty much likes anything that is sweet. I don't think that there's any kind of sweet or candy that he dislikes. So maybe he's not the best judge of character.
All right, we are done for today. Thank you so much for listening. Cheyenne Oserini, always good to see you in front of the mic and not just editing the show.
It is always great to be here, Jer.
Absolutely. Heads up, in case you were listening to this, we have our Wednesday. We Didn't Win happy hour at Castalia tomorrow, Wednesday night, starting at 5 o'clock, going till whenever. Alcoholic and non-alcoholic things. Please come out and support us. Support Castalia. It would always be good to see you. Tell us we're idiots to our face. Feel free.
Or don't.
Or don't. Whatever you want to do. I'm excited about that. With that, I'm Jer Stays. Remember that you are somebody. We'll see you around Detroit.